So here we are in After Effects. We already have a new project selected. No, wait, no, we don't. Never mind, because I didn't have that welcome screen pop up. So we're just gonna go into File, New Project, and that will create a project for us in the workspace, right? So it's kind of the same as your Premiere. You have your project library over here where all your media is going to go, including your compositions, which are sequences in Premiere, right? So sequence is a composition here. You have your preview window here, your program monitor, to be exact, right? Or to what is called in Premiere. You got a bunch of your toolbars on the right, panels, and down here is your timeline. And all the assets are also going to go down in the timeline here as well. Kind of same as Premiere. So to add any assets to it, like video or sound or whatever, you can just drag and drop into the media library and they're going to be there. We're not doing any of that today, but it's pretty simple. You know how to do that. What we're going to do today is, first off, make a new composition. So for that, you can go Composition, New Composition. Command N is also a command. Or down here, you have buttons. So New Composition, you can make a new folder. You can interpret footage. So create a new composition. I'm just going to press this button here. You can go Composition, New Composition. You can press Command N. This dialog window will open up. So again, kind of same as your sequence settings, right? You have your frame width and height, so we'll leave it at 1920 by 1080. You can choose the presets. I'm going to choose HDTV 1080 to 24 frames per second. You can also have manual control over your frame rate down here, right? So you can change it to whatever you want. Should I zoom in a bit? Is that better? So 24 frames per second is what I like. I'm going to leave it at that. Now over here, it's important. So duration and start time code. You can start it at whatever time code you want, right? Like let's say if you want to start at 1 minute, you can. Duration, both of those are in, so this is going to be your hour, minute, second, and the last two digits are frames, right? So kind of same as Premiere, just don't confuse your frames with your seconds. The last two are your frames. So if I want to make it 15 seconds long, I'm just going to punch in 15 in the second pair there, and that is going to be 15 seconds. Base 24 means it's 24 frames per second, right? So every 24th frame, I'm going to go to the next second. Background color, you can make it whatever. I'm going to keep it black. Alright, so that's about it. Resolution doesn't really matter here. You can change it as you go. So I can leave it quarter for now. Actually, I'm going to make it half. And press OK. And let me zoom out. So this is what we see. We have our composition in the left window now. That's our asset that we made. There is our program monitor appearing now. We can see the composition. There's nothing in it yet, so let's generate a text layer. To do that, we're going to go down into the timeline, and on the right side of it, in our assets window, right-click, New Text. Alright, so you're going to right-click into this gray area here, and New Text. And that will create a text in the middle of a screen for us. So we can start typing right away. So I'm going to say hi. Not ho. Hi. And I'm going to make it Helvetica for now. There we go. Alright, so there's my hi in Helvetica. So once I have my text in there, in the character panel, right here, right, I can change the point size of it, all the character effects, all the character settings that you have, that you're used to in Photoshop and Premiere, you have them all here as well, right? You can change your leading if you have multiple lines, tracking of letters, close or loose tracking, right? Width, height, all of that stuff is here. And so you know how to use that. I'm not going to go into that. To move things around, you can just click and drag. the asset on the in your frame, and you can just move it around like that. And let's say we're gonna animate it now so that this high ward, my God, I can't speak today, is going to come out from the side. So to actually start animating, I'm going to select the frame from which I want the animation to begin. And let's say I want the animation to begin at 2 seconds. So I'm going to go to 2 seconds. So again, you can grab the scrubber and track, right? And you can see the time changing down here at the bottom. I don't know if you can see it far away, but I'm going to zoom in a bit. All right, so tracking, there's your, this shows your exact frame count at 24 FPS, or the time code, 2 seconds, 14 frames. You can just click on that. If you want to go directly 2 seconds, type in 02. Oh, that takes it to 2 frames, sorry. 02, 00, takes it 2 seconds. All right. Another weird thing with Premiere versus After Effects, you know how in Premiere you can use your arrow keys to advance 1 frame or go back 1 frame? In After Effects, arrow keys are actually motion. So if I'm holding down the arrow keys, I'm going to move my object around, and I'm not going to move on the timeline, right? Trips me up every time because I just do it right away, right, to advance a frame. In After Effects, to advance a frame on the timeline or to go back a frame, it's page up and page down on your keyboard. So if you press page down, you're actually going to go forward, and if you press page up, you're actually going to go backwards. Not sure why it's backwards. You would think that up is forward and down is backwards, but no. Anyways, that's by default. I think you can change it in preferences if you like, right? You can just bind the keys. So yeah, page down will advance you 1 frame. Page up will bring you back 1 frame. That's how you move around the timeline, not with the arrow keys. You're going to watch me do that today, because I keep doing that. Okay, so let's say you want to start the animation at 2 seconds, and I want the animation to start off the frame right there, so I'm just going to drag it right out of the frame, and my object is just going to sit there, right? And to create a new keyframe, one thing I can do is to go into all of the standard kind of effect controls that I have, same as Premiere, right? You would have your opacity, size, position, and all that stuff. All of that is hidden in this little triangle down here. So if you guys go to your effects, go into your composition timeline, this little triangle will open 2 more triangles, and in there, if you go into, not text, into transform, you would get all of your regular kind of, what are they called? Attributes in there, right? So your anchor point, which is where the center of the image is, position, scale, rotation, opacity. If you don't want to look at all of them at once, a lot of the time what works is, what's easier, especially if you have a lot of assets, you can just select the layer that you're working on and press P for position, and only position will come up right there. So you don't have all of them. So P is position, S is scale, O is not opacity, as some would believe. O actually takes you to like the end of the sequence. R is rotation though. All right. So you have all of those. If you want to kind of switch in between them fast, it's much easier than having all of those triangles open. So I'm going to go to P for position. There is my object. And let's say I wanted to move into the screen and I wanted to take 1 second to do that. So I'm going to go to 3 seconds right there. And I'm just going to drag it. Oops, sorry, not yet. Forgot to activate keyframing. So to start keyframing, I will first off go back to the frame that I was at and press this little, zoom in. Press the little stopwatch. I think it's the same icon in Premiere. So once you press the stopwatch, you started keyframing. then if you go to a different frame and you do some change, it should technically automatically make a keyframe for you. Sometimes it doesn't. I cannot figure out when it does not do that. I think it's like when you switch objects and you just use it in this area and you don't have it selected down here, it doesn't do it. Most of the time it should do it for you automatically. So now that I have keyframing active, I'm going to advance to 3rd seconds of my timeline, and I can just change the position by dragging it manually on the screen. Zoom in. I'm working with 2 different kinds of zoom here, so excuse my... anyways. Yeah, so I can click and drag to make the final point, right? I can also just adjust the position by moving these around, right? So I can click and drag that. I can punch in a value. So let's say I want it to be at 1,000 pixels over there. It's at 1,000 pixels sitting right there. And that is going by its anchor point. The anchor point is currently in the bottom left-hand corner. Okay, so let's say I want it to be right here, my high. And to play the animation, you can just press space and you can see it there. If you have sound and such in the background as well, you would have to do RAM preview, which is numpad 0. So once you press numpad 0, it will actually do the whole render thing, and then it's going to play it for you. Alright. And press numpad 0 again to cancel it. So numpad 0 is RAM preview for sound and other things. I think in this version of After Effects, space actually plays sound as well. In CS5.5, it might not. It doesn't, because I tried doing that before. Alright, so there's the animation. The word is coming out over here. So same as Premiere, except just slightly different look. Let's add another word. So again, right click, new text, and we will say hello, and I'm gonna drag it below here. So again, now I still don't have animation like keyframes ready, right? So it's not going to draw any lines for me. And speaking of curves, actually, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna leave hello there for a second. I'm gonna go back to high, and as you all know pen tool, right? You can actually create kind of smooth curves with the pen tool, right? So here you have the same option. You have your paths for the animation, so you can actually modify those paths. So let's say if you want that high to kind of float in on a little wave, you would just change the handle of the other point, and it will do that, right? If you want to add another point, just go to that point, to that frame on the curve, and add a keyframe. So to add a keyframe on existing point without actually changing anything, right? So if you make a change, it should automatically add a point for you. But if you don't want to make any change, you just want to add a keyframe, you can press this little rectangle there, right? So that little keyframe icon, if you press it, it's going to add a keyframe. It's not going to add any change though quite yet until you actually change it. So once you have another keyframe in the middle of 2 on the curve, you can, did the wrong thing there. You can grab the handles of that keyframe as well and change that. So now, if, like, let's say I wanted to go like on a full kind of sine wave, I can just adjust this curve, and now I have my high kind of floating in like that. All right. To get rid of that keyframe in the middle, all I have to do is just select it and delete. And now I'm back to straight line, well, which is not exactly straight because I changed the handles on there. Oh, see? So I'm just going to change the handles back to, my God, sorry, 8. No, I don't want that. Just trying to work out all these zooms here. Oh my God. There we go. All right, so I have that keyframe selected. I see the handle for it, and I can just bring it back to flat, right? It's not actually exactly flat now, so maybe I'll just have to move that a little bit as well. Anyways, flat enough for our purpose. There you go. So now that slides out on a flat line again, and our hello is down here now, so we can move it over here. The way that video had things popping out, though, is not sliding in. I don't think there was any slide in. They just kind of did the scale from the corner, which is already by default where the anchor point is. So that's what we're going to do. So go to hello, select hello, press S for scale, and we're going to activate the keyframing by pressing the little stopwatch. Gonna just go into 100% and press 0, and now it's gone. And let's say I want to advance. I'm gonna zoom out a bit so like you can see. Advance 6 frames forward and make it 100% there. And once I make it, it should make a keyframe for me automatically. And if I want to see it, right, that's what it looks like. So let's play the whole thing now. Right, that's what it looks like. Hello is still kind of slow, so maybe I'll just make it 3 frames long. So to change the duration of that, you can grab onto keyframes and move them around, right? So once you're on your timeline, if you just want to change how fast something happens, grab the keyframe and you can move it to where you want it to be. If you hold down Shift, it will snap to your scrubber, or it will snap to other keyframes of the other assets, or even other keyframes of the same asset but in different properties, right, in different attributes. So let's say if I had scale and opacity, I could just hold down Shift and I could sync those together like that. Right now I just want to snap it to the scrubber because that's where I measured out my 3 frames. I'm going to zoom back out here and press 0 for RAM preview, because RAM preview actually plays it real time. So the problem with space is that sometimes it's not going to show you real time. If you play it, yeah, you see that red thing appearing up there? That means we're actually watching it slower than it's going to play out. So if you're trying, you know, to kind of gauge your pace of how you want your video to feel, do not use space, because space is not always real time. Sometimes it's going to be slower than what it actually is. So it's always better to use 0 for your RAM preview, and then what it actually does is kind of renders the video, and then you're watching an actual clip. You're not watching a After Effects kind of trying to put it together for you as it goes, right? So that red not real time is not good for when you're trying to watch things. So try to avoid that. If you're not really worried about timing, you're just looking at things, then it's fine. Okay, so we have that. We have this appearing. What we're going to do now is, let's say I want to add another word, but I want to add it right where my hi and hello would be. But for that, I'm going to move my hi and hello down a little bit. So you can also box select everything right there. You can box select multiple objects if you want. And see what happens now. So let's say I didn't like it here, right? And if I move it down, what it's going to do is going to create the next path for my hi, right? Because right now I'm still animating hi, and it's adding another keyframe and extending the path for it. So now it's going to look like this, right? Which is not bad, I guess, but I don't want that. I want it to be a straight line. If I went back to the keyframe that was this keyframe here, and I dragged it down again, it's not going to make the curve. It's going to change that keyframe to be below. So it's going to be a straight line, but diagonal, right? So the only, well, maybe not the only, but the way that I know, and that works well, is to parent this object to a null object, and then do that motion on the null object. And you can actually parent multiple things to a null object. to make them all move at the same time, or scale at the same time, or fade up at the same time, whatever attributes you have. And that's how that video was done, right? That's how they moved all those words around, or like it creates the effect of moving the camera around when it's actually the things inside the frame that move and the camera frame stays static, right? So what I'm going to do is right click on here again, and where I made the text, new null object. And null object is just an invisible entity that exists in After Effects. It's going to have a little bounding box, but it's nothing, right? It's not going to display. It's just a thing that exists there in the preview. And the null object has all the same properties. It has opacity, it has scale, even though nothing is going to change technically visually, but it has those properties in it. And what I want to do now is take my hi and hello, I'm going to zoom into here, and parent them to the null object. So to parent, you can see that little parent section right here. You can just click on that little spiral and drag it over to the object you want to parent to. And once you parent it to it, you can see that it appears right there. So alternatively, you can still do the same thing by just clicking on this little drop-down menu and parent it to null one, right? So it does the same thing, except you're just doing it differently. Sometimes it's easier just to click and drag the little spiral, because if you have a lot of objects there, they're all going to be in that gigantic list, right? So if you don't want to scroll through a giant list, you have the objects beside each other, just click the spiral and drag it over. So now null1 controls my hi and hello. So once I grab null1 and move it around, I'm moving around hi and hello as well. But what it's doing, it's not affecting the way animations in hi and hello on themselves play out. So if I drag it down here, remember how I did it before and it was making the curve change? If I do it now and I select hi, the curve stayed the same, right? It's still a straight line, it just got moved. The whole thing together with the keyframes got moved. So it's not really changing anything there, it's kind of controlling it as a separate thing. So I'm going to put them around here, let's say, and I'm going to make another text layer now. So new text, and what did I say? Hey. And let me zoom out. Alright, so I'm going to move that hey text right where my hello is, right there. And now I'm going to make my hi and hello go up before hey comes up. Right, so let's just take the null object. Or actually, let's animate hey first, because it's just sitting there, right? So hi, hello. Hello is done right here. We can see it on this keyframe. So let's just skip a couple frames, maybe like 3 frames. Give it a little bit of a break there. Start from there. And go to hey. And maybe even do the same thing. So you can just copy attributes as well, right? So if you go to hi, there, or hello, there's my scale. So Command C to copy. Go to hey, Command V to paste. It's done, right? It's doing the same thing. And you can go press S for scale. It's going to paste those keyframes at the scrubber, not at the same place where they are on the other timeline, on the other object timeline, right? So now I have hi, hello, and then hey right after that. And now to free up the space for hey, what we're going to do is, instead of grabbing the 2 objects together, we'll just grab the null object, right? And right after hello, in those 3 frames of blankness that I have there, go for position for null object, click the little stopwatch to start the animation, go to when hey starts fading up, and change the position of it. Actually, I'm going to go to when it's completely faded up and change the position of it and see how it looks. So like that. So this is what's happening. Yeah, there you go. That looks pretty good. So now you have those two words kind of making room for hey, right? And let's just actually play it. My hi is for some reason out of the box there, and drag it out of it. It's because I moved my null object and hi moved together with it, right? So again, play it again. Why is that doing that? Oh, I made another keyframe. That's why. So if you want, again, remember, if you want to change the position of a certain point, you can't just like go in the middle of somewhere and do it. You would have to actually go to that point where you're sitting at and change the position, right? And then you have exactly what you want. I just made a rookie mistake there. All right, so there we go. Hi, hello, hey. You can also use the null object to scale, aka zoom, right? So if you're, let's say, wanted to be fully zoomed in on hi and hello, I'm gonna go to, so I can see them both right now, and go to my null object, S for scale. That will be my one keyframe, and then I also wanted to zoom out. That will be my other keyframe. Now, hey is not parented to the null object. So when I change the scale of hi and hello, hey did not change, right? Because it's not parented. So I'm gonna zoom out at this point here, and you'll see what's happening. 100%. There we go. So now you have hi and hello zooming in like that, and then hey is coming in at a later point. That's kind of a bit crazy. Maybe I'll get rid of that. I don't like that. We kind of made it really tight here, so it's not looking good. It's just too much motion going on within 4 frames. Anyways, I'm happy with this. So instead of having these pressing S, P, or whatever you have for scale, position, and rotation and stuff. Oh yeah, rotation. Actually, I didn't show you rotation yet. So let's say we wanted to rotate hello as it comes up. So in order to control multiple things at a time, I'm just going to press on that little triangle, right, and then I can actually see all of the keyframe timelines at the same time. So I have my scale and rotation. So now I can actually keyframe rotation as well. And let's say I'm going to go to my final one so I can see what's happening. Rotation, keyframe it in. Go to the previous keyframe again, and just say I want it to be -1 full turn. And now my hello will kind of spin in like that. Looks slightly different. Again, simple controls, you can play around with it. It's all pretty straightforward. Once you got how to use one of them, it's really all the same, right? There you go. All right. One thing I wanted to show you guys is kind of a stylized effect. Is a handwriting effect, right? So let's say you wanted to like animate someone writing on a chalkboard or something. You can do that. So to do that, I'm going to change the hey to a handwritten font, which I found last time. Just give me a minute. Getting there. Oh, there we go. All right, that's decent enough. Right. And to do that, you will want to go into effect, and then generate, right? And there is a write-on effect on here, but it does not really work as well, and I could not figure it out. So we're gonna do stroke instead because it works better. And stroke is really a mask. You're just kind of creating a mask over the the word here, and is just going to trace that mask for you. So all the effect controls appear right up here, right? Your effect controls for actual effects that you have, they're up here. We're not going to touch those just yet. We're going to make the actual mask. So I'm going to zoom into it closely and take a pen tool, and everyone knows how a pen tool works. So clicky, click, make a line, alt click to close it, click again. Oh, wait, hold on, I want to click, backstep, alright, sorry, there. I'm gonna backstep, click here. So if you're gonna do that, you would want to trace the letter forms as you would be writing them out, right? Because then you're gonna just switch your mask to be following the order of those points. So I'm gonna start with H. Obviously, I'm not gonna start at Y because then it would be backwards. And I'm also gonna trace the letters as I would be writing them too. So if I'm writing an E, I'm gonna start over here. Right, and up. That. So here, I'm gonna say make a line up to here, make that handle smaller. Just trace this thing nicely, well, as nicely as we can, I guess. Again, make this handle smaller. Everyone knows how to use a pen tool, I hope. If you don't, practice a little bit. It's a bit tricky sometimes. I don't really like it. Alright, anyways. Close enough. I'm going to write on the Y. There it is. There it is. Alright, so we made our pass on the letters. Don't want to do more than that. It's short word is good for this purpose. Oh, come on, go away. Alright, so now what you're going to do is first off change the mask to red, let's say, so you can see it better. And click all masks on there. And brush size, you can't see it now, but if once you start increasing the brush size here, you're going to start seeing the red outline appear. So let me just move around here. So I'm going to increase that brush size until my letters are fully covered with the redness. And I'm a little bit off there, so I can always move the points a little bit and tweak it. To make sure I'm covering it all. Alright, there it is. And my paint style is going to be not on original image, but reveal original image. Because right now what I did is basically just made that hey writing come up over top in this pen tool and brush, right? So I'm going to press reveal original image. And what it's going to do now is if I'm gonna grab the end keyframe and start moving it around, we see it writing the text for us, right? So all I want to do now is find my last keyframe. So let's say I want it to end like hello, hey. So I want it to end on 4th second. I'm just gonna keyframe the end right there. And then I'm going to go back to the beginning, to the end of hello, I guess, and just make my end go away to all the way to 0. And now once I play it, that was really fast because it was rendering. Here's what it actually looks like. Still pretty fast. Maybe I can space it out a bit. So to move those keyframes, you'll actually have to go into the Effects tab under the Object Properties in your timeline, and there's my stroke effect, so I have to open it again, and there is my end keyframe right there, right? So I can grab it now, and I can move it over here, let's say, and now it's going to take longer, so once I render it again, and watch it. Now it's writing slower. Okay. There also are a bunch of effects in here. Effects and presets. There they all are. A lot of them are quite useless and complicated. Kind of like Premiere, right? You have a bunch of weird ones. But there are a couple nice ones. Like I think let's find what I wanted here. Yeah, you know, you can add a bunch of noise. I'm looking for a specific one though. Just give me 1 second here. Nope. Simulation maybe. I think it's called scatterize. So I'm just gonna look for scat. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, so it was in simulation scatterize. We just found out it in the previous tutorial. Did not know about it until then, and it's actually doing a pretty cool thing. It's kind of making things dissolve. So grab it, drop it on anything you like, right? So I'm gonna drop it on hey. It's right there. You have the other effect controls appear right here now. Again, same thing as with the stroke. You can control it and keyframe it. So once we've written it out, let's say I want to keyframe my scatter at 0 right here. And then I'm going to go another second or so and keyframe my scatter to that. And what it's going to look like is this. So not bad. Again, there's a bunch there. Look up what is nice, right? The internet is your friend. Yeah.
For the movement, it's very the movement like for hi or hello, it's very static. Is
Yeah.
there a way to make it so it kind of like it accelerates and decelerates?
Yeah, you can just keyframe it that way. You can also actually add a wiggler effect to it so that it's kind of moving around a little bit. And
so it just keyframes it's made like there's no automatic way to do that.
Not that I know of. Look it up.
Yeah, just putting like a bunch of different keyframes
and just
different
yeah.
keys.
So it just
Yeah, but you would normally like if you want to kind of make your own preset, you would just make it for one element and then you can just copy it over.
Yes.
But I'm sure something like that already exists.
Okay.
Like something that called like I don't know Doppler or something maybe. No, Doppler would not be the same thing. I don't know. Whatever it could be, like easing maybe. It could be easing. Could be called easing. Try that.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, but otherwise you can just make it. What I wanted to show you with this, in combination with this though, is also opacity, because right now it kind of dissolves and just stays there, right? And we kind of want it to dissolve into nothingness, so maybe we'll also add opacity to it. And again, with the go back to our hey, and we see in effects now, scatterize, it's appeared there, and we can see those keyframes, so I'm just gonna go to them and add opacity as well, so keyframe that in 100% to 0 over here, change that, and now it would dissolve nice and smooth into kind of nothingness completely, right? So hey, and it's gone. So that works. That's cool. A wiggler. One way to use it, I couldn't actually get it to work in my After Effects. I think it's broken, but another way to do it is here. I'll show you. So let's say we want our things to hi and hello to kind of float around a bit. I'm gonna select the null object, and wait, why is it not? Oh, come on, you work. Hold on, I'll get there. There was a way to open it. It's different on Windows. I don't know what it is on a Mac. Hang on. I'll get there. Maybe not. I want expression panel. No, it's none of those. Anyways, we'll skip that because it's almost time. I gotta show you how to render it out, and then we gotta start on the thing. Oh, one more thing before we render. So this right here, your quality, is the quality of your preview, right? So if you have it at full quality, obviously you're gonna be looking at the best thing possible, but your computer might be struggling. So you have like 16, 13, 12 FPS, which is pretty hard. 9 FPS, I mean, it's like horrible. So if you're working on a slow machine, just change your preview to like a quarter, or at one point I was doing 1/16 on my laptop because it just was a big AfterEffects file and it was doing horribly. So you'll see that the quality changes, obviously, right? It's getting blurry and stuff, but it will handle it much better. So right now we are at actually 19 frames versus 9 that we had before. Alright, rendering. To actually render it now, it's a bit different from Premiere. Same thing though, you will have the proper composition selected, right? So comp 1 is the timeline that I want to render. Go into File, Export, Add to Render Queue. Once you add it to render queue, your render queue should open up, and here is a bit of a weird interface that is not like Premiere, and you have to press a lot of buttons. But here's what you do. So lossless is not what you want. Here, I'm going to zoom down there. So for output module, you want to click on the little drop down menu here and select H.264. You do not want lossless because it could be a gigantic file. So do H.264 to compress it, and then once you click that, your H.264 will be written here in yellow. That's when you click on the yellow H.264 over here, right? And in here now, you don't see the bitrate quite yet, but if you press Format Options, that's when you get to the real thing. That's when you get to your control of the bitrate. That's what you need. So we're going to make the bitrate 5 to 10, let's say. 10 being, variable, so it can change. Your minimum bitrate is going to be 5, and if it doesn't need the 10, it's going to stay at 5. But if it's doing a lot of crazy things on Premiere, in After Effects, right, it can start rendering up to 10. We're not going to touch the codec settings. We're just going to touch the bitrate. Right, so 5 and 10, okay, and that's it. You don't need to touch anything else here as well. Just press OK. And yeah, the render settings is where you have like your frame size and other things, but that's not as important. Normally, if you have best settings, that means it will render at the full scale of your project, right? So if you made your composition the proper scale, don't really need to touch the best settings. Best settings is not where you change your bitrate. So just remember that. Make sure you change your bitrate in the H.264 by clicking on it and changing it in here. Alright? 5 and 10. Otherwise, you're going to end up with tiny files or gigantic files. Alright. So that's it. You're going to output 2. Make sure you select the name and destination. So just clicking on that will open your window for you. Name and destination. I'm just going to call it last name. Exercise 10, let's say. Alright. Save. And it's ready to go. Just press render. And that will render it out. Now remember, you don't want to render all the extra space. Right? So you would trim up your work area before you render. To trim the work area, I'm going to show you quickly. So you don't want all of that extra space there. So to trim the work area, you can just click and drag. Right, same as in Premiere. This gray bar that is right below your seconds, the second and the frame meter. You can just trim that up, and that is going to be what gets rendered. Also, an easy way to trim up the front of the timeline is to press B, and that just brings your beginning of the work area to where your scrubber is. Okay, so I think that's it. I'm gonna pause it.